Hello! Today's stories come from r/MaliciousCompliance. We've got 3 stories. First up, reconsider working here if I want to take a honeymoon? Okay. I had a manager who hated reading emails and would miss important issues/meetings because of it. I even suggested text-to-speech to make it less unpleasant, but he told me off. He spent a lot of time playing golf with clients and was mostly inaccessible. It got to the point where most of the team CC'd me. I was next on the totem pole, so I could grant approvals for stuff like expense reports and help out on projects my manager was supposed to work on. When I was getting married, I requested 3 weeks off for my honeymoon. Everyone knew I was getting married. Manager even congratulated me on the engagement when it happened. I had 5 weeks vacation accumulated and didn't think it would be a big deal, especially since I was requesting it nearly 8 weeks in advance. Then, a vacation request denied email comes in from our time off system. I emailed manager following up, left voicemails, and after a week he finally replied to an email. Look, we need dedicated people. If you think you can take 3 weeks off for a vacation, you need to reconsider your position here. Keep in mind, my request stated vacation request for honeymoon. I replied with, no consideration needed. My last day will be X date in 3 weeks. Let me know about transitioning duties. I forward this to HR, CCing manager, and HR sets up my exit interview. But HR tells my manager to set up transition for my responsibilities. During my notice period, I even replied all to this email twice, asking about transition plans since I didn't get any transition plan. I tell my team. They ask manager what to do with my duties, and manager says he'll think about it, but doesn't do anything nor email anything out. 4 weeks later, I get a call from my old boss. Are you planning on coming in this week? Why would I? Because you work for me. Not as of last week. Stop messing around. Get your ass in the office. I told you my last day when you denied my vacation request. How about giving proper notice and transitions? HR asked you to develop a transition plan and to attend my exit interview. It's not my fault you don't read all your emails. I hang up and block his number, but screenshot the call log and sent it to the HR contact with an innocent, should I be worried old manager thinks I still work for him? Fallout. Things went from bad to worse for my old manager. Apparently, I was doing most of his managerial duties, so he actually had to try and get stuff done himself. He also got into some legal issues. Those client golf outings? He played golf, but not with clients. That made his termination with cause, so no severance for him. I ended up at a competitor with a nice bump in pay. I wanted to start after my honeymoon, but new company really wanted my help on a pitch. I joined for several weeks, reworking a third of the pitch, and then went on my honeymoon for 3 weeks. They paid me for the entire time off. That garnered a lot of goodwill from both me and my wife. I only left the company because Mrs. and I moved cross-country and they didn't have remote positions back then. I don't have all the details, but no old manager had to hire lawyers to deal with legal issues related to his dismissal and the expenses. Clarification? This happened in the late 2000s. Mrs. and I are still married. This one really hit home for me. I had an old boss who told me I needed to improve my communication, but he wouldn't take my calls and certainly wasn't reading my emails. I realized fairly quickly that he just didn't want to work, and he expected me to do his work for him. Now on to a few comments before we hit up the next story. How did the exit meeting with HR go? I can't imagine they didn't comment on manager's lack of responses and not being there. Seems like that would have given you ample time to innocently share info. OP. The meeting was fine. The usual exit questions, compensation, roles, responsibilities, concerns that made me leave, etc. Disclosures and paperwork. Halfway through the exit interview, the HR person asked if manager was coming. I shrugged and gave my best, who knows look. Manager's absence just added more credence to my concerns. I pulled up the emails mentioned in the post and tried not to grin when she asked me to forward those to her and the HR director. Never give an ultimatum you're not prepared for the other party to take. Good job, OP. F that guy. I worked for a VP of engineering that had just started a position with a new company. One of the senior directors came in one day and said, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to quit. The VP said, great, I accept your resignation, and walked down to HR. The face on the director was priceless, tried begging for his job back. Years before that, the same VP was selling beater pickup truck. The truck wasn't perfect. We all would borrow it to haul stuff. Well, some guy came over, looked at the car, and claimed all these safety issues and lowballed him. My friend, VP, said, I can't honestly sell you this truck for any cost knowing all these safety issues. Goodbye. I laughed so hard when he told me this. He ended up selling to some other guy for the asking price. And now for our second story, you need to get your numbers up ASAP. No exceptions. This happened a few years ago. At the time, I was working for a local ISP, internet service provider, in one of their shops. My job was basically tech support on the spot, i.e. data transfer from devices, opening tickets for customers for their outages, and the sort. Among my duties, I had to sell phone equipment, such as cases, chargers, etc. I really liked my job. The customers were somewhat nice, being that they're mostly older people who didn't know how to use their device. I enjoyed helping them, and in return, they'd stop by with pastries from local bakeries. Yum. I had this one boss who was a stickler for numbers. Now, he wasn't necessarily a bad boss, but his unhinged obsession with our targets was weird. The man could not comprehend that sales were down because no people were coming in. Weird guy. Anyway, one day he calls me up to his office and has this strange one-on-one talk with me, how I need to get my sales numbers up, even though I don't work in sales. I asked him if he had a certain idea how I should do this, seeing as most of my clientele are older people who don't need selfie sticks, external batteries, and stuff like that. Figure it out. Offer it to everyone, no exceptions. A few weeks go by and he calls me up to his office again for what I thought would be a one-on-one again. But lo and behold, he needs a favor. His dad was in town and he would need me to stay an extra paid hour to transfer data from his dad's old phone to a new one because he had an important meeting to attend. Sure thing, boss. His dad comes in, and this man is such a good guy. We started talking and laughing about sports, cars, and other different stuff. And then it hit me. Cue malicious compliance. I offered this man everything, stuffed his bag with all the goodies, and the final bill came up to around $200 instead of free. He walked out happy. My boss, on the other hand, wasn't so cheerful. Never again was my productivity questioned. I quit a few months later. Oh, this poor old man, he sounded so nice. I hope that dick of a boss paid for his stuff. And now on to the next story. Sorry, I deleted all the files you told me to delete. My job was to design and write software prototypes for individual high-value customers. If they liked it well enough, then a real software engineering team would build the real product. Occasionally, I would run the prototype for a few months while the customer evaluated if they wanted to buy the real project. Now, these prototypes are not a lot of code, but they do run with a lot of data. Even compressed, it can be a terabyte or more. Having done this work for years, I've accumulated a small disk farm of past projects, which can be very useful when a customer asks for something just like what we did last year, but with a smaller change or two. The company resisted buying hard drives for this, but it saves me so much time. I ended up buying 1 or 2 a year myself until I accumulated about 10 of them. Figure over $1,000 worth of external drives. Then, unexpectedly, management changes. New management thinks they can replace old software guy with a cheaper new software grad, and I am laid off, with 2 weeks to train my replacement. Yes, it's blatant age discrimination, but impossible to fight, so I just went for a graceful transition to my next job. Except I have $1,000 of personal disk drives with old customer data on them. Company insists that no ex-employees may take any company data off premises, and all files must be deleted. I don't want to just leave the drives at the company, but they insist I must delete all data before taking them home. So I offer, they can buy them from me. I will eventually use them for something else, but I can leave the data on them in case someone needs it. Not good enough. New manager insists I must delete all data and all backups before I remove the drives. Okay, that's what I do. 6 months later, I get a series of desperate phone calls. New software grad has been unable to build any new prototypes. Old customers are calling to get old prototypes updated, and new software grad has no idea how to do that. Executive VP is calling to ask what would it take to bring me back to do my old job. Sorry, I've got a new job now. And even if I didn't, I cannot just modify the old prototype because you insisted I delete all old copies of it. If I did want to modify it, I'd first have to recreate it from scratch. The code still exists in their source control, but the data is the heart of the prototypes. And that old series of 6 months apart data we collected is gone for good, no matter what. Sorry, you screwed yourselves exactly like I told you would happen. Hope whatever you saved by hiring a new grad to replace an actual experienced programmer was worth it. Another prime example of upper management having no clue what it takes to build something. Imagine tens of thousands of labor hours flushed down the toilet just because they wouldn't buy back the data. Absolutely ridiculous. I'm glad this guy really stuck it to them in the end. And I found 3 more really awesome short stories in the comments that have management begging on their hands and knees. I had a similar thing happen with a small architect firm. I had my own design firm, now retired, and had been designing and updating their site for about 5 years. At the end of the final year, they told me that I was charging too much for any changes to the site, even though I had given them tons of freebies, and they were going to get a younger, more hip designer that could do things faster and cheaper. They wanted me to give them all the files and delete what I had on my end. So I sent a CD to them with all of their files, basically what was online on their server anyway, easily retrievable, and erased everything, meaning I erased all of the code and the build files, layers and layers, for all of their online images as well. I told them to put the CD in a safe place and make sure to back it up with another one, closed out that account, moved on. About a year later, they called me in a panic, saying that the new person screwed up their site, it was not running correctly, and that they couldn't find the CD I sent them, no backup. And somehow, this person also erased all of the old files on their server as well, so had nothing to start over with. Apparently, she was doing a redesign on the fly and just writing over the old files without backing anything up. But they didn't like the redesign and wanted to put the old site back up until they could make a decision. But it was gone. Oops! Not my problem. Get your younger, faster, hip designer to figure it out, folks. I'm out. Last time I checked, and this is years later, the old site is still up. Broken. Many moons ago, I worked as an engineering liaison to marketing writing prototypes we would demo during the best and final offer phase of the proposal process. My company refused to give me access to the CM tool developers used since I was in the marketing department on the org chart. At a convention, I was displaying some of my prototypes, and a local competitor offered me nearly double to take the role of technical lead on one of their projects, signed the contract, and handed in my 2-week notice. On my last day, IT arrived to wipe my equipment since I was no longer an employee. I just smiled and handed them access. Same thing happened a few months later. Where is all the prototype code? It was on my computer. Since I had no CM access, did IT back it up before wiping it? We can offer you a raise if you come back. Nope. Click. I still laugh when I think about it. Hell, I got let go as an intern, and as a result, the guy who let me go got fired. My boss's boss decided to fire all the interns because quarterly numbers for his department weren't good enough. Ergo, get rid of the dead weight was his solution. The other interns had been there for only a month, no loss there. I had been an intern for 2 years, working full-time year-round and finishing my degree at night. Due to graduate in 2 months. I was basically a full process engineer at that point. I'd never met him. My boss was on vacation, and he came to my desk on a Friday and told me I was no longer needed. Welp, I finished the day and left like I was told. No handoff or anything. The manager got fired because I was working on multiple projects solo with zero oversight for 3 or 4 different departments. IT wiped my laptop because he told them there wasn't anything of value and deleted over a year's worth of work output. They hired a full engineer to replace me at 3 times what I made, and they lost the bid for a multi-million-dollar contract because they couldn't recreate my work in time. My old coworkers' updates after I left were amazing. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.